And Minnesota Democratic Senator and presidential candidate Amy Klobuchar joins me now, a member of the Judiciary Committee. Senator, thank you very much for joining us. First of all, William Barr has now said, the Justice Department has said that he is not going to recuse himself. It's one of the questions that you asked during his confirmation hearing. And your reaction to that, did you think he should have recused himself? I think it was pretty clear that whoever succeeded Jeff Sessions was not going to get the job if they didn't answer that question the way the president wanted it.
Well, I thought he should have recused himself. I made that clear at the hearing. You look at the 19-page memo he wrote, which was kind of an application for the job, in which he espoused a very, very large role for executive power, outsized role, not consistent with a lot of the case law. And so I was very concerned, given what he'd said in that memo about a president and what a president can do and whether a president can basically make the laws on. And I noted that, he had commended others for recusing themselves in the Trump Justice Department, like Attorney General Sessions, and yet he himself isn't recusing himself. I will say it doesn't surprise me, Andrea, at all. I thought that's what he would do, but I don't think it was the right decision. I think the question was what he would do with the advice of career justice people. I don't know myself what that advice was in this case, but I'd asked him if he would also follow that, and he wouldn't commit to that.
Now, something else has come up in Jane Mayer's New Yorker piece on Fox News and the White House. We're going to be interviewing her shortly on all of that. But one of the things that came out, which surprised a lot of people to get evidence that she has from her sources, that both Gary Cohn and John Kelly, when they were in the White House, were being pressed by the president to get the Justice Department to block the merger, the Time Warner merger, which involved CNN, a frequent target. I wanted to play a little bit from the confirmation hearing because you brought this up, because William Barr was on the board, I believe, of AT&T involved in that merger. Let's watch.
I did.
You were on the board of Time Warner, and you signed a sworn affidavit questioning whether the Justice Department's decision to block the merger was politically motivated, given the president's prior public animus toward the merger.
At that meeting, I was concerned that the Antitrust Division was not engaging with some of our arguments, and I got concerned that they weren't taking the merits as seriously as I would hope they would. But I have, I'm not sure why they acted the way they did.
In your oversight function on judiciary, do you believe the committee should now revisit this issue with Barr and with the Justice Department as to what kind of pressure they had from the White House, given what Jane Mayer is reporting about what Gary Cohn and former Chief of Staff Kelly were told?
I do, and that's why, Andrea, I sent letters to the White House and to the Justice Department, and I never got a straight answer. I have my own issues with this deal, but if you have issues with the deal, they should be related to the merits, not because you don't like CNN. And that's what the president was focused on. That's wrong. And I am glad this reporting is coming out now. It's going to give me a second shot at this to make the point. And as a bigger matter, antitrust is something we should be talking about more. I was with Robert Reich this morning, and he's appearing before our antitrust subcommittee today for a hearing. You have more and more consolidation in this country. It means prices go up. It means innovation and entrepreneurship go down. We're basically going back to the Gilded Age in terms of consolidated power. And this White House talks a game that they want to do something about it, but every time they do it, it's just a political hit on a certain company or liking a certain company. That's what we're hearing out of the White House. And I think the Justice Department should be taking this on, have the resources that they need, and do this in the right way, not just because of some kind of political grudge match.
Robert Reich, of course, the former labor secretary under Bill Clinton and a professor of economics. Let me also ask you, just to wrap up the questions about the Justice Department and this Attorney General. He gave you a very lawyerly answer at confirmation about whether he will disclose the results of the Mueller probe, which we think is imminent. It could be any day, any week now. He said he would follow the practices and procedures, which are rather narrow and restrictive. How much do you think he should be forced to disclose of the report?
Well, this is going to be a moment for Attorney General Barr, because he said at the hearing that he respected Mueller, he wanted the investigation to be completed, and that he would do all that was possible to release the report. Now, I didn't like the words he used because I felt that he was kind of hiding behind the rules, and the rules do have some restrictions in them, but there is every reason that he should put the public's interest in mind, the interest of our country as we approach another election in 2020. We saw what Russia did last time. We know from intelligence officials at the Trump administration what they may do again. And for the sake of our democracy and our country, he must make this report public. And that is what I will be saying, what those of us on the Judiciary Committee want to see. And otherwise, we are never going to know what happened. We need to have the facts.
Now, of course, you're running for president, and we want to ask you about the campaign. Hillary Clinton has now, for the first time on camera, ruled out running. This was to Bronx News 12. Let me play a little bit of that.
I'm not running, but I'm going to keep working and speaking and standing up for what I believe. I'm not going anywhere. What's at stake in our country, the kinds of things that are happening right now, are deeply troubling.
What role should she play as the former nominee?
Well, first of all, this doesn't surprise me. I had a really good meeting with Secretary Clinton about some of the things that she needs to be taking on as a country. And of course, foremost is just how we're dealing with foreign relations and diplomacy. I think she could be a very strong voice because she understands the need to stand with our allies. You look at what the president just did coming back from North Korea, taking the words of a dictator, Kim Jong-un, over the hearts and souls of this family, the warm beers. You look at what he did with respect to the Khashoggi case in Saudi Arabia. You look at Putin, and when he stood next to him and basically embraced his view of a foreign power invading our election. All of these things were not standing up for America's democracy and not standing with our allies. And that is where I think Secretary Clinton, among many other ways, can be a strong voice as we head into this election.
What about Joe Biden, who is kind of the Hamlet of this drama? Many people, including myself, from my reporting, believe he is going to get into this, perhaps not before April. Does he then sort of take over the Democratic field?
I think that, first of all, I have a lot of respect for Vice President Biden. I truly enjoyed working with him when I was in the Senate. I think we're going to have a lot of competition. That's a good thing. I don't think it's fair to say when you have so many excellent people running that any one person will take over the field. It's going to be a long year.
Let me ask you about another big issue, Medicare for All. There's an op-ed by David Brooks today in the New York Times saying that Medicare for All would be plausible if America were a blank slate. But Medicare for All is not plausible, he suggests, because we're not a blank slate at this point, that the easiest way to get to a single-payer system would probably be to go back to 1776 and undo that whole American Revolution thing.
Well, I have not read this column, but I will say you should be open to all ideas. Right now, healthcare premiums are too high. We've made some strides with the Affordable Care Act in terms of making sure people are protected and covered, but I think that was a beginning and not an end. And to me, as you look at this time period, what we should be doing is some immediate fixes, which is reinsurance cost sharing, but then go into a public option, something that President Obama wanted to see when he passed the Affordable Care Act. You can do it by expanding Medicaid, you can do it by expanding Medicare, and I think that is the best way we can get to that universal health care, which is where we want to get right now and most immediately, because we have just been through the passage of the Affordable Care Act, the implementation, and there's many more things we have to be doing. And to not mention pharmaceutical prices would be wrong, because that's the one area that the Affordable Care Act did nothing about, and Congress has done nothing about since that time. And it is finally time to move to take on those pharma prices by bringing less expensive drugs in from other countries. My bill with Senator Grassley, or unleashing the power of 43 million seniors to negotiate better prices, lifting that ban on Medicare, and then stopping the practice where big pharma pays off generics. Another bill I have with Senator Grassley, so that we can have true competition.
One of the results in our new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll that came out this Sunday is that Americans, a majority of Americans, do not like the socialist label. Is that a problem for Bernie Sanders?
You should talk to Bernie about that. He and I have worked together on a number of issues, including these prescription drug issues that I just brought on. I will just speak for myself. I'm not a socialist. I'm a Democrat. I'm proud of that. And I've worked both in the private sector and the public sector. But that doesn't mean that we're not living at a time where you want to have some checks on the private sector. That's why I brought up the antitrust laws earlier, Andrea. That is an area where decades of conservative court decisions, inaction by Congress, more big companies, sophisticated companies that our government hasn't been able to put any kind of a check on. That's an area where, no, this isn't about socialism. It's Republicans, Teddy Roosevelt, the trust buster, that took this on early on. And it is time to bring this issue back again.
Now, just finally, since you took this on in your opening line at the Gridiron, when you asked jokingly, how did everyone like the salad, you obviously were trying to deal with the New York Times story, which criticized you for your staff relationships and for an incident involving salad and your frustration with your staff. Do you think that that report, that story is unfair?
First of all, I was just making fun of myself. It was the Gridiron, and then that's what you do when you're on that stage.
Understood.
But what I can say is this. I have a great staff. I wouldn't have had such a great announcement and town hall, you name it, how we've been getting around the country, both on our political campaign and in our official office. I am proud of them. We just had the news, which wasn't about me, about our staff, that Vanderbilt found that I was the most effective Democrat on 15 metrics, the first one since 1994, and John McCain, who was able to be in the minority party and break in the top 5. That's not about me. That is about an incredible staff.
Senator Amy Klobuchar, candidate for president, senator from Minnesota. Thank you so much. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Andrea.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.